Well, hello, Junko and Pei-Chia. I am
Hello.
so delighted to have you here to talk about the things that we love the most, which is teaching our students.
Mhm.
And I just wanted, before we get into the actual teaching part, I wanted to ask you to give a brief overview about you and maybe about your classes for spring quarter.
Just a little bit about myself. So my name is Pei-Chia Chen. Um, I've been teaching, I'm from Taiwan, and I've been teaching Chinese at UCSD for 16 years now. So this is my 16th year here. I teach Chinese, but I'm also the academic coordinator for the Chinese language program. So this spring, I'm teaching first year Chinese for students with dialect background. So here at UCSD, we have this unique track where we have a beginning course for students with this special background where they grew up in a family, in a household that a dialect of Chinese is spoken. So these group of students, they've never officially learned Mandarin, but for them, growing up, listening and understanding a dialect of Chinese and their family background definitely give them some advantage of learning Chinese a little faster, absorbing things a little bit well. Yeah, and these group of students, they actually have been with me since fall quarter. So this is their third quarter with me. Yeah.
Junko?
Okay, so my name is Junko Simpson, and I teach Japanese in the Japanese Studies program. I am complete my 5th year teaching at UC San Diego, and I became an academic coordinator like Pei-Chia starting this year. And for spring quarter, I taught one first year and one third year classes. And even though we hadn't planned on teaching online, we were able to transition very well to an online setting. And I think overall both classes ended up being very successful.
Junko, you were working on a version of digital and remote like instruction before we even knew about the coronavirus. What did you have set up already, and what was it relatively easy to incorporate in our new reality?
Okay, so even though the curriculum was developed based on a communicative approach, in the past, the majority of lecture time was used for explanation, especially in lower division courses. So we wanted to change this to more student-centered learning environment. So we decided to implement flipped classroom models into first year courses. So from 2016 to 2019, we developed about 45 instructional and cultural videos to remove or to minimize the time of the class, the lecture time of the class, so the students have more time to practice and we can implement more student-centered activities. And for some high-level activities that might require instructor scaffolding. And along with these videos, we also develop preview homework sheets. This sheet helped students to understand objectives of each week, and students can get ready for classes. And before the COVID-19 outbreak, we were also preparing the kanji, self-paced kanji learning materials. Kanji is Chinese characters that we use in Japanese language, but many students struggle mastering these kanji characters. But since we started preparing these materials in the summer of 2019, we were able to implement those learning materials this past quarter. And also in the first year Japanese series, students create their own e-portfolios to accumulate and self-evaluate their own learning process throughout the quarter, throughout the year. So they are required to use a lot of technological tools to complete tasks. And so even though there are usually huge difference between face-to-face and online learning, we found that by utilizing our flipped classroom models, and because we are already trying to utilize technology, we were able to modify our curriculum quite easily and to cover all of the learning objectives by the end of the quarter.
Wow, Pei-Chia, you too put an enormous amount of work in your teaching and to prepare. What changed in the way you approached the class when you moved to remote only in response to the pandemic?
So I am definitely not as prepared as Junko in the sense of, you know, looking at this at the beginning. So I remember it was the end of the winter quarter when we first got the news that we will be, you know, moving online. So I remember students were in shock. I was in shock too. But I told them, I said, I was in shock, but I didn't want to show, you know, let them know. So I said, oh, you know what? Everything will be fine. I'll figure it out. Don't worry. I'll figure it out. So of course, for the following weeks, the final exam week and then the spring break, I just, you know, study and research and you know, go to attend workshops to figure out everything that I can know about online teaching and how to smoothly transition my course online, which has been largely on like a classroom setting. So during the winter final exam week, it was also, I'm sure everyone experienced the same thing. It was also a frenzy because the students were told to move out of their dorm at the same time while they need to complete their final exam. So at that time, I realized that my goal for the spring quarter is very simple. We need to survive, and I need to give them a sense of stability because they were really worried about everything. And I had students email telling me, oh, can you extend the final exam deadline because I'm packing and I need to finish and all of these. So, so that's my goal. Very simple, just survive. And then I need to give them a sense of stability. So during my preparation, during that 2 weeks, I wanted to do a special shout out to the EdTech support because they also worked tirelessly, answering our questions and, you know, hosting various workshops. I attended a lot of workshops and I, you know, tried to learn a lot about this. And maybe halfway through it, I realized there's no way that I can become an expert in just 2 weeks. So I just decided then that, okay, it's very clear. There are 2 things. As long as I can accomplish these 2 things, I'll be fine. The students will be fine. First of all, I wanted to preserve this very highly interactive nature of a language class, because that's what we love about being in the classroom. And secondly, I wanted to keep students informed, comfortable, engaged, and motivated to finish the spring quarter. So once I have that clear, I think it's very easy for me to start designing the class. So I know we all have to use Canvas. So I use the modules to organize everything that I want them to do, every assignment, every project. And I think that sort of organization gives them a sense of security because they can always see what's going on ahead of time and they know what to expect and then to plan their time well. And I also set up the new routine, similar to what Junko just said, that, you know, we move some of the things out of the classroom. They need to do some preview and they come into the class. And then there's always a review session in the breakout room where they can meet with their classmates and review what was going on, what was taught earlier in class. And I also noticed that breakout room is also good for them because these group of students have been together, seeing each other every single day for the past 2 quarters. And now all of a sudden they're, you know, scattered all over California and even other states. So that is a little piece of haven for them to, you know, go in and then chit chat with each other, I guess, and kind of reconnect.
So let's talk now a little bit about the challenges. I'm sure you had your share of challenges, and I'm curious to know about some of them and how you dealt with them and how you overcame them, and lesson learned maybe to share with others.
So my challenges were actually two biggest challenges. First one is to create an active learning environment online. Also keep students motivated throughout the quarter. So we ask students to write mid-quarter reflection around the beginning of week 5. And reading students' comment, quite a few students mentioned that it is so hard to keep concentrating during Zoom lectures because there wasn't a lot going on. So whenever I create activities and that require them to participate on their own, I try to use like timers, music, so that you know, in order to create more fun and excitement, kind of like game show environment, so that there wasn't too much like silent time during the activities, and try to make class time more active and deliver a little more lively fun. And I think those worked pretty well. And also, we created a lot of small group works and activities by using breakout rooms, like Pei-Chia said. So in language classrooms, it's very important that we provide students opportunity to practice target language, in my case, Japanese. So I put students in the breakout rooms in every class so they can practice Japanese. And also we posted a PowerPoint slides and a breakout room activities on Canvas before each class time. So students downloaded beforehand, so they knew that what kind of tasks they had to work on during the class time and breakout activity time. So it was easy for us to manage the class time. And so even though there were those challenges that I faced, I would say that we could overcome and create a good learning environment.
That's great. What about Pei-Chia?
So I think the challenges that I was facing in the spring quarter, first of all, it's a personal challenge is time management. So I think the increased workload definitely was a lot to handle, but it's also a good opportunity for me personally to push myself to think outside of the box, because I have to do this. Because how do I continue to engage my students? I think that's my main goal throughout the 10 weeks. And so somehow, you know, throughout all of this, I feel like I discover my own potential as well. I can do all of these. It's doable, and it's you know, and I can come up with these you know, these ways of teaching or you know, activities that I probably didn't have time to think about before. Another big challenge is, like Junko says, I'm having a hard time keeping students focused and participated in class, especially with some of the attendance issues. So I understand it is UCSD's policy, and I completely understand where it's coming from. So they didn't want us to keep attendance this quarter, and you know, due to various reasons. And I completely understand it. But I think for a language class, real-time interaction is so important, because we need to have a way to evaluate them. Not just a homework that you finished and, you know, a product to show us, but that real-time interaction, that communication is a huge part of the evaluation. So the way I tackle this issue is I actually reached out to them individually. Like, I would send them emails, I left comments on their assignments, and I asked them while they come into my office hour or they're doing their oral interviews, and I would say, okay, why aren't you coming to class anymore? And what's going on? So at that point, I think students felt bad. So it worked a little bit. It worked for some of the students. They started coming back more often. And at the same time, I add extra assignments for evaluation. So I always give them worksheets, the same thing as what Junko did for breakout room. We always have worksheets. We always have to complete the worksheet, submit it for participation. So I added extra notes on top, and I said, if you didn't come to class, you didn't join us in breakout room and participate with your partner to finish this task, then you need to submit a recording assignment, because I need ways to evaluate your speaking. So with all of these, I think that sort of, at least it worked on some of the students. Some of the students figure, okay, if I come to class, I don't have to do this extra work. So they start, some of the students start coming back. And then I'm also working on to make sure that our content and our activities continue to engage the students. So I improvised a lot, and I tried to incorporate topics that they mentioned in the class, or the chit chat, doing the chit chat like right before the class. So a lot of things that we're talking about made into our practice. They love Animal Crossing. A lot of students mentioned that they started, baking bread and, cooking and all those things at home, stocking up those essential items like toilet paper and, hand sanitizer. And they talked about their frustration about staying at home, having to share space with their siblings. All of these topics made into our following worksheet. So a worksheet or homework or other writing projects. So I think it gives them a sense at the same time, like, hey, I can actually talk about all these things in Chinese. And what I learned in class is really useful, because it really helps me to communicate with other people, and not just for the sake of practicing in class, not just because the teacher asks us to, now let's talk about something, and because they can now actually tell each other their life and using the material that they learn in class.
Great. So you touched upon this already, both of you. You talked about, how having to teach online help you think out of the box. And Junko, you talk about some of the strategies that you use to overcome some of the challenges. But I'm curious to know if you could say a little bit more about how this experience has expanded the way you teach, or the way you think about teaching, that could really go a long ways even when we go back to regular in-person teaching.
So I have researched online language learning in the past, but I actually have never taught fully online courses. So I wasn't positive in the beginning about how I could cultivate student-student or teacher-student communication online, because it's very important in language classes. Well, in all classes, but especially language classes. But because of this experience, I was able to connect with the technologies that we were already using to how they can be used in an online environment as well. So I guess that I would say that this experience has expanded my view of online teaching and learning, and how successful it actually can be. And as well, I had really fun researching and learning new technologies that I will be able to use even when we go back to face-to-face classes.
Great. Pei-Chia?
Because I've been teaching first year Chinese, and like I said, it has always been largely on a classroom teaching, a classroom setting. I was very careful before when I choose to use authentic materials that I can find on YouTube. Because with the beginning level, a lot of times, first of all, it's very hard to find. Secondly, it's very hard to find, and you have to come up with your own worksheet or task, appropriate task for students, so that it does help them, not just for fun, and it doesn't discourage them from learning. So this time during spring quarter, because I do want to change things up for students, so and I understand the limitation of the time we have on Zoom, so I reduced the amount of our traditional workbook assignments, like the writing assignments and stuff, but I utilize a lot more authentic materials that I can find from YouTube, and I wanted to see if it could work well with these first year students. It turns out to be great, actually, because the students' feedback is just overwhelmingly positive. I think they like this kind of assignments a lot more than, okay, you want us to do page 3 to 5 and we'll do it, that kind of thing. A student wrote, so I found these short video clips. It's really difficult to find the one that's suitable for first year, but I found some. Students either have to watch this clip and complete some task, or they have to record or write down their feedback, like a response paragraph. And they loved it. They loved it. And students wrote underneath his assignment. He says, "I can't believe I understood most of it. I know it's not all of them, but I understood most of it. I feel like I can finally, step into the world and, listen to other people's conversation." And there's also another student who sent me an email, and then she goes, "Oh, thank you for everything this quarter. And I wanted to let you know that your assignment is the only one that I actually find exciting to do, because I wanted to know what's going on. And then I think it's fun to do these kind of, sometimes they don't understand everything, but it's a fun puzzle for them to tackle." So I think this is it has definitely, changed how the way I look at these authentic material. I definitely recognize the importance of authentic material in language teaching, because it not only provide authentic language, it also provide cultural backgrounds and everything. But I was always very careful about it with the first year students. So I think this time it kind of changed my perspective.
Junko Pei-Chia has made a point now about student responses and what parts of her techniques or contents they particularly responded well to. And as a former teacher of Italian myself, I know how important it is to bring authentic materials into the classroom or into the virtual classroom. What was your experience, Junko? What were some of the, how did your students respond?
And we also use some like YouTube videos type activities, and students really liked it, because as Pei-Chia mentioned, students really get excited when they understand authentic materials. Like there is no like teacher control, that everything authentic, and they understand it. So we did some of those activities, like they have to watch the videos, then they need to write about it or answer questions. So I really think that is very important. Also, the key to motivate students, because if they just use language in the classroom, they don't get motivated. But many of my students, they want to watch anime, like read manga in Japanese. So those are really a good motivation for students, and I really agree with her technique.
Can I say something? Because you mentioned manga and those anime. So this is not about YouTube, but this is one of the writing projects that I gave the students. So at the end, this is one of the 3 writing projects that I gave them. So towards the end of the quarter, this one is called a letter. So I said you could write a love letter to someone, or you could write a breakup letter to someone. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with whatever we were learning in the class. But I just wanted to see if they could kind of use what they learned, because what we learned, it has different topics, and nothing talks about love. But I wanted to see what they can do. I also, at the same time, in the assignment, I said that if you don't want to write a love letter, you can write a letter to coronavirus. Talk about the impact it has on you, on your quarter, on your life, on, in this world. the coronavirus letter was a hit. I was very surprised to see a couple of the letter, and they were so good at describing how they feel about this whole thing, the sudden change, and what coronavirus did to the nation, to, you know, to his family, to the community. So that was an unexpected success. But now coming back to the love letter, I had 2 students in my class. They they dedicated their letters to one of the K-pop singers who happened to speak Chinese, actually, who happened to, and I later found out that they happened to be speaking Chinese. It was so genuine and loving, just, and then they put pictures on it and then say, you know, I'm gonna work hard, one day I'll meet you, and all those things. So it's funny that Junko mentioned the pop culture, because I think it also gives us a sense of you know, what they're interested in. And I think it's important, it's really important that we recognize that connection, recognize the fact why they wanted to learn this language and what's the drive behind it. So I think their project a lot of times inspire my next step, like how I can introduce more and package it in a way that they are excited about it.
I think so. Like in the third year class, we did the activity that they choose their favorite anime clips, and instead of the voice actors, they became a voice actor. Then they recorded the parts, and it was really good and fun, and students really liked it.
Yeah.
When I used to teach Italian, we had an activity where I connected with a colleague in Italy. There's 9 hours difference, so you have to be it doesn't work all the time, but when I was on the East Coast, it was a little bit easier, and so I connected with a colleague who taught an English class for Italian speakers while I was teaching Italian to American speakers, typically Americans or English speakers, and they had half of the class in English and half of the class in Italian, and that was also a great way to connect with authentic Italian speakers. And my students were saying things like, oh, that person really pronounced words differently than you. And so we got into, you know, a discussion on different accents depending of where in the country you come from, which is not something that would have been easy to explain in the abstract. But now they knew that, you know, if I am from Venice, I will say casa to say house, but if I am from Florence, I would say Hasa. And so it was a very good experience, and something that you made me think about it in your attempt to deal with really authentic materials. So I think I want to ask you one last thing, and as we go back to teaching in the fall, and we may need to adapt to a combination of both in-person and remote instruction moving forward. What do you think you need to be successful? And perhaps even importantly, equally importantly, what do you think our students might need as well in this changed world we live in?
So I wanted to talk about students first. I think for them, from IC over the past 10 weeks, I think some of them did get the idea of online learning, while some of them are still having trouble recognizing that they need to also put in efforts and time in order to succeed. So I think for the students, I would say, because this coming fall, the Chinese language program already decided that we're going to move everything online, remain online. I don't know, Junko, maybe the Japanese studies is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So So I think for the students, I think they all need to recognize and develop good learning habit, especially especially for online classes, because it's much easier to get distracted or procrastinate when you're not in a classroom setting, when you're, you know, sitting in your own home and then not having a really fixed schedule. So I think for students, they do need to recognize the fact that this is not something that you can just, you know, sit back and watch a couple of videos and complete. That's not the way to learn it. So that's, I think, for the students to be able to succeed in remote teaching, that's what they need to do. And for me, myself as a teacher, I think looking back, considering everything that's going on, I think this past 10 weeks, it was a success. And then largely because I think it was built on a connection that I already built with the students from the past 2 quarters, because they trusted me. And I also believe in their potential. I know what they can do. So it's like a collaboration, I think. For it to be successful, I need to keep the communication channel open. I need to listen to their feedback, and they also need to understand why I am giving them so much homework, or why I am designing the course this way. So I explain it to them. I explain it to them a lot, and I listen to their feedback, and then I adjust the workload, the amount of the workload, depending on you know, their feedback. So I think moving forward in fall quarter, in terms of execution, it'll be easier because I already, you know, went through the whole thing. So I pretty much know in terms of technology, in terms of the technical part, I know what to do. But I think it will also be challenging and difficult for all the language teachers, because this time around, we have to start building a relationship with these students from scratch. It will be a new group of students who we've never met in person. And then we have to find that common ground and to kind of trust each other that we're going to be moving forward together. So I think this summer will be a perfect time to start thinking about any, you know, new tricks or new ways that I could engage these new group of students. Yeah.
Junko, what about you?
Okay, and Pei-Chia said everything what I want to say, but I think as a teacher and student, we really need to be flexible and adaptable, and we need to think about the way that how we can solve problems and find the solutions. So I think we just need to be, all of us need to become critical thinkers to overcome this difficult time. And also, through this experience, I really thought that technology is excellent. And I would like to keep some of the technological tools that we can assign student tasks and projects that they can work on collaboratively, even online. So along those lines, I would like to share one of my student work this quarter. So in the spring quarter, we studied about Japanese food culture, and student designed a Japanese bento based on the Japanese nutritious guide. So each group made a video about their bento to present to the class. And this was the group group competition. So at the end of the quarter, all students watched each other's video and select the best one in class. And in regular quarters, students can get together physically, and I give them time in class and they can work on the project. But this quarter, everything was online. So they had to complete the task collaboratively online. But to be honest, all videos were really good and probably equal to regular quarters. And the video that I want to show you now was the one which was selected best in class. It was really cool that actually one student was at home in Philippines and another one was here in San Diego. So here is the video.
がない問題がない弁当。私たちのお弁当の名前は時間がない問題がない弁当です。このお弁当のメニューはご飯とシニガングスープとアドボと枝豆と卵焼きとフルーツサラダです。大学生は忙しいですから時間がないですが、私たちのお弁当を作ることは優しいです。そして、食事のレシピは便利で簡単です。それから少ない材料があります。だから、すべての大学生はこのお弁当を作れます。
このお弁当のバランスがいいと思います。私たちは食事バランス回路と一中三歳と UC バークレーの大学のバジェット回路を使います。また、フィリピン料理とベトナム料理を作りたいです。そして、一中三歳で主食が1品、主菜と副菜が2品、スープとフルーツデザートが1品があります。この主食は
Okay, so since the video is pretty long, I'll go ahead and stop here. But as you see, students really made a wonderful presentation, even through online collaboration and communication.
It's so much fun.
Impressive. Yes. Those are what year students are these?
First year.
First years? Wow. That's very
really
impressive.
amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I'm sure they had so much fun making it because food is such a universal topic for everyone. Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's a great project.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations, both of you. That has been very inspiring, and I now want to go back into the classroom myself, even either virtual or real, but I miss teaching language, and you made me miss it even more. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
you so
Cristina.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.